Hello, True Health Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. If you have blood sugar issues and you're looking to finally resolve them, I would love to work with you. Please go to bloodsugarcoach.com, put in your information, and you'll be able to book a free 30-minute session with me, and we can see how I can help you. I have personally resolved my own type 2 diabetes. I am no longer a diabetic, and I did so with natural medicine. In the last 6 years, I've gone on to help a lot of people to also completely resolve their blood sugar issues so that they now have normal blood sugar. So if you'd like to no longer have blood sugar issues, please go to bloodsugarcoach.com. That's bloodsugarcoach.com. I look forward to working with you and enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 207. I am so excited to have back to the show KJ Landis, a wonderful healer, an amazing author, and health lecturer. She was on the show episode 157. If you haven't listened to it, you got to go back and hear it. She has some amazing advice that she gives, and today she's back to teach us very well-timed advice coming into the holiday season, coming into what usually is a very stressful and hectic time. And then after the holiday season, we're left also feeling very stressed out from the upheaval of what just took place over the holiday season. And a lot of people go through ups and downs. And you have to share with us today some amazing tips on something that we can do absolutely for free that will aid our healing. So I'm so thrilled to have you here today. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Ashley James. What a gift to be here. That's the holiday season gift. And a lot of times it's priceless, literally.
Yeah, it's these interviews are gifts that are amazing to me. I feel like I'm a listener of my show, and it's kind of funny. It's kind of like being the fly on the wall. And so when people talk about how great the show is, I'm like, yeah, you're right. This is a really great show. Not coming from ego. Like I'm not like patting myself on the back. I feel like I'm this third person observing the show, loving it, because when I do these interviews, I am genuinely learning and curious and interested, and I love what you're here to share today. I know I will definitely be utilizing it in my life. You're here to share the power of silence as a healer. What does this mean? I definitely want to get into this and how powerful it can be to help us heal. You have a lot of great tips and tricks that are free to do that aid us in our healing. First, I'd love for you to jump in. For those who didn't hear episode 157, could you share a bit about your background so people have the context of how wonderful of a healer, an author, and health lecturer that you are?
Oh, thank you. Well, of course. I started out as an educator in the mid 80s, teaching K through 8 all subjects. But before that, I was teaching aerobics. And before that, as a child, I was obese, and I became obese because I was sexually molested by adult male relatives and teen male relatives. And I used food and music as my comfort. And I stifled the feelings and I kept silent. And when I was finally able to heal myself, I was able to shed my pounds of pain, and I was able to exercise freely and truly enjoy my body for what it did, not for what others had done to me. As an adult, having two children in my late 30s, I also gained weight, and it was harder and harder due to normal middle age hormonal changes. So I was reaching multiple modalities and reaching out in order to heal myself from those sorts of pounds of pain and the reflections and memories I had from the earlier abuses. So once I had lost the weight, I started seeking ways to keep it off. And the focus for me was on doing new forms of silence, of meditation, of eating, of yoga, of hiking, of being in nature that complement the scientific facts of what to eat in order to maintain a healthful life.
I love it. I love that you found such a very holistic and grounded way to heal, that it was not just, going to Weight Watchers. It was not just a diet. You looked for how you could heal emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically and energetically, in a way that you could do these practices day to day, that you could implement them into easy habits that enriched your life and allowed you to come back into balance, to heal from the past, and to empower you in the now. And I love that you've taken everything that you've learned, and you've gone on to. I love the workshops that you do. Can you tell us a bit about these wonderful workshops that you do in your area? You're in the San Francisco area, is that correct?
Yes, I live in San Francisco, and I teach free workshops for the San Francisco municipal transportation drivers. I teach workshops at public libraries, senior centers, and privately in people's homes if they invite me in and gather a group of 10. I teach 10 different workshops at the time, and I'm adding one more this February. Everything from the power of good fats, how not to fear fat, how to transition from the standard American diet to the most healthful diet without going broke and without going crazy. And the most important part of that is how to build a tribe of support while you're making lifestyle changes for the better. Because really, we're all going to have the end day, right? We're all going to die. But I want to die knowing that I have flexibility, mobility, brain power, my memory, and my strength as far intact as I can. And the way to do that is through building the tribe of support when you're making these lifestyle changes for the better.
And another thing I've noticed about you is that you figure out how to make health, and really like true health, be affordable. Because I mean, you're a working mom, you've had two kids. You are us. You are all the listeners, right? All the listeners, we don't have $1 million in the bank to spend on every therapy and every, cure. We all have jobs, we all have families, and we all feel like we don't have enough time, we don't have enough money. Like, to some extent, we kind of run into those limiting beliefs. But some people will stop themselves and go, I can't get healthy because I
Mhm.
don't have enough time, I don't have enough money. And that's where we fall short. Um, because there's so much we can do now that doesn't cost money, or that's very affordable. And there's so many things we can do and fit it into our day no matter how busy we are. And that's something you're really good at teaching. Tell us a bit about your other workshops. Like, just let us know about all the workshops, just so those listeners who are in your area um, might be excited, or if there's any listeners who have friends in your area, could let them know about it.
I'm teaching about essential oils and where to go in San Francisco to get wholesale prices and how to
Nice.
use them in the air, on the body, and ingesting them. I'm teaching about the differences between good fats and bad fats and how to actually access them really cheap, even at Trader Joe's or the dollar store. I teach folks how to go to the ethnic grocery stores and get the best prices on organic fruits and vegetables, how to use farmers markets. I even take seniors on field trips called the dollar store paleo field trips.
I love it. I love it. Man, I wish I live in San Francisco.
I'm
Man.
teaching. Thank you. My daughter, who's 13, she and I teach grain free, sugar free dessert workshops, which are very powerful, especially during the holiday season and for Valentine's Day. And we're also teaching ginger, everything ginger workshops, everything coconut workshops. And I'm teaching silence as a healer, meditation in 2 minutes or less.
So cool, so cool. Now, tell us, you give so much away for free. I feel like I just want to like get listeners to donate to you. You know what I mean? Like, so you could go out there and keep doing your work. But you must make a living somehow. Can people hire you as a coach, or you have books to sell? You have how can people hire you or work with you if they're not in the San Francisco area?
I work online and through the phone 24/7. through email and texting as a life and wellness coach, personal trainer. Um, I teach step aerobics. I also teach chair yoga, private sessions, and I have a website. And in order to keep my funds going for the free workshops, there's a donation part on my website. And I have 4 books available. My latest book is now 33% off wherever you find books. It's called Happy Healthy You, Your Total Wellness Toolkit for Renewing Body, Soul, and Mind. And there are simple, concrete strategies to create positive health outcomes if you feel stuck, if you feel paralyzed. And some of them are movement oriented, some of them are silent oriented. Some of the tools I have inside this beautiful book are written, some are role play. And it helps you dig deep into your why. Why do I feel stuck? And then it gives you tools for overcoming that.
Very cool. I love how practical you make healing and you make it really easy. Like you said, where you've got 2-minute meditations. Because I had a guest on the other day, wonderful woman, don't get me wrong, but she starts off with, well, you got to start with a 30-minute meditation. And I'm hitting my head going, no, like I can't sit still for 2 minutes and you want me to do a 30-minute meditation. Like 30-minute meditation is like advanced, not a beginner.
Yeah.
Um, and most people, you just say you got to do it for 30 minutes a day and they just glaze over. Like that'll never happen. But if you say to someone, while you're waiting for your coffee to brew, you can take 10 deep breaths and be silent, then I can do that. I'm waiting for my coffee to brew. I don't need to check my email 500 times. Like I can put the cell phone down for 2 minutes, and
Yes.
that becomes something meaningful, but only if we understand why. Why should we be silent or utilize silence for healing? Let's get into this, and let's start by you sharing what did these practices do for you personally?
Okay. I want people to feel empowered. I want people to feel healthy. I want them to feel some sort of enlightenment or lift through silence. And the different modalities of silence that have helped me and that I have coached people with have included the negative thought pot, yoga, meditation, hiking or walking in nature, bathing, candles or essential oils, prayer or a place of worship, reading, writing. If you have the money, a sensory deprivation tank. And the easiest one is sleep using an eye mask and earplugs. And I'll go into each one of these and share how it's helped myself and my clients and how it can help the wonderful listeners out there, especially during the stressful time of the holiday season, which is rampant with obligation.
The thing about stress, and I love that we're going to get into this, you're going to get into each one. I'm very excited. The thing about stress is that so many people, especially women, I can only say this because I'm a woman and I don't remember an experience as a man if I was one in my past life. But as a woman now, I can say that we tend to go, I'm not stressed, I'm not stressed, I'm not stressed, and then we just break because we think stress is like some kind of panic attack or overwhelming emotion. Like like we should be feeling it like we're feeling sadness or happiness or anger. When stress is not, we have to understand stress is not an emotion. It is a physical pressure on every system of the body, and the body will eventually shut down. It'll eventually collapse. There's been people who've collapsed due to stress, who've had heart attacks due to stress, who just can't wake up in the morning. I mean, there's different ways that the symptoms will arise. But if we understand, the best way to handle stress is by preventing it, by active relaxation, by actively doing exactly what KJ has mentioned that we should do on a daily basis, because then we're like mitigating it. We're it's like if there's a pressure cooker, turn the knob and now some of the steam is coming out instead of waiting it for it to explode. And so really the best way to handle stress is to handle it before you notice any symptoms of stress. Like by the time you're having panic attacks, you've already been stressed for months and you let it build and build and build, and the panic attacks are your body's way of saying I will shut down if you do not handle this. And so I've learned this the hard way. I've had coaching clients myself who've learned this the hard way. And the best way to get it through to women is to let them know, don't expect an emotion. Stress is not an emotion. You could totally feel fine emotionally and then the next second be on the floor, because stress is not just emotional. It's mental, it's physical, and we need to take the time for so that we can, it's like that pressure pot. We need to release the steam. And so I love what you're teaching is little things that we can do throughout the day to release that steam, to let off the pressure, so that we can keep stress at bay. Is that
Absolutely,
that's an accurate way
absolutely.
of sharing? Is that an accurate? Have you noticed that? Did I describe that well?
Yes, and in fact, in many of your podcasts, you talk about the body whispering to us, and if the body is whispering to us and we don't listen, eventually our bodies will scream at us.
Hmm. Right.
And I listen to your advice on that, and I don't wait for the scream. And if we're lucky and we listen to this podcast and many of your podcasts, we have the opportunity to not even get to the whisper of the body physically and chemically hurting ourselves, sending messages that are painful and suffering and joint aches and stress and not being able to sleep and being short with your family and sharp when you want to be loving. So there are
Hmm.
opportunities for us every step of the way.
Hmm.
May I start with the negative thought pot?
Yes, actually, I like wrote that down. I'm like, we have to, whatever. All the other ones are good, but we have to cover that one. So I'm glad we're covering it first, because that is such a cool. Did you name that? That's such a cool name.
I did. One day my daughter came home and I had left the door open. And this is San Francisco, so it's a big city. And she was afraid that somebody was in the house and she wouldn't go in the house. So I went through the house and I told her there's nobody in the house. It was just my error. And, she was about 8 or 9 at the time. So she wasn't buying it. And I'm like, well, you can't live in the car. So I took a flower pot that was empty and I took a permanent magic marker and I wrote the word negative thought pot on it. I said, come on in here. We're going to get rid of your negative thoughts. And I tore a strip of old paper, which is old notebook paper that was yellowing, and I ripped out some strips. And I told her, write down whatever negative thoughts you have in your mind, your fears, things that are holding you back, anything that you're afraid of right now. And then we scrolled it up into a tiny little scroll and we set it on fire in the negative thought pot. And you could do this indoors or you could do this outdoors. And if you're afraid of your alarm going off, do it far away from the alarm, the smoke alarm, and then just pour a little water on the ashes as soon as it's done. And when you physically have that mind body connection of writing it down, having it go through the head, through the heart, out the arm, onto the paper, and you remember that negative thought the next time, you will also have the memory that you physically destroyed it. And you no longer have power over me. I destroyed you, remember? And
Hmm.
it's just like slamming the door on that negative thought. And I start every workshop with the negative thought pot. And it has nothing to do with the chocolate or the ginger or the fat, but what has to do with opening your mind to new possibilities once you've closed the door on things that are holding you back and holding you stuck and limiting you.
Because so many times when it's in our head, it is a really big, scary monster. But when we get it out, either through talking about it or writing it down, we realize, well, that's silly. Why was I really worried about that? Like, that's manageable. I can handle that.
And it's silent and it takes a minute or two.
Mm.
And you can do it with your toddler. It's so powerful. I'm not smart at math. I can't put the Legos together. Let's be silent, write this down. Or if it's a toddler, you write it for them, or they can draw pictures of it. Scroll it up, set that baby on fire. Negative thought pot. It's in my kitchen. We use it as often as we need to.
Very cool. Do you find that sometimes the same negative thoughts keep coming back, that you have to keep writing them down over and over again? Or do you find sometimes when you write it down and you realize, wow, that has no control over me, and then you burn it, um, that you're really able to release and let go of it?
I find that it only comes back once or twice, and only when I'm in the same physical surroundings that it happened because it's still a memory.
Mm.
And then you have the new memory of physically destroying that negative thought. And that's a silent moment as well, using the negative thought pot. And then the next time that thought comes back, it's a moment of silence that's empowering.
Well, that'll be fun to do around the holiday season when all the family comes over. Because
Yeah,
you,
imagine your whole family doing that in the backyard.
yeah, or if you've got a fireplace, can you everyone throw their negative thoughts in the fire?
Yes. Yes.
That'd be great. And if any fights break out, you have to stop everyone and make them write everything down and then throw it in the fire. That's a
Imagine that.
Yeah, that's a great break state, instead of perpetuating the fights, we can have everyone do this exercise and then they know anytime a fight breaks out, they have to stop and write the stuff down so then they won't keep fighting because you're going to make them stop and write it down and throw it in the fire. And so eventually they'll learn as a family they're not allowed to fight or else they're going to have to sit down and write it out.
Yes. Yes. And then instead of it turning into a punishment, it turns into a silent moment of reflection.
Mhm. Very cool.
I wanted to talk about the simplest one, which is sleep. So when I go to sleep, I'm still in the city. The train tracks are near my house. So I find the easiest thing to find true silence and be able to dream deeper is an eye mask and earplugs. And if you don't have the money for an eye mask, I just take an old t-shirt and put it around my head, or a towel, or two socks tied, dark colored socks. You don't have to buy an eye mask. And earplugs you can get at the dollar store, and they even have smaller ones for women. And that creates a true sense of silence away from the ambient noise in the room. And it's very empowering, and you sleep deeper and better.
Mhm. I love eye masks. Before we got the night, we ended up getting these kind of shades that completely block out the light. Kind of like in those hotel rooms when you just there, it's you can't see any light at all. And that's we set that up because of the podcast. I learned enough from all the guests talking about ways to increase your sleep or have better quality sleep. Don't let the light in and like even moonlight. And so with these face masks which are fairly affordable on Amazon, it has like a bump, a raised elevation around your eyes so your eyelashes don't, so even if you're blinking in your sleep, it's not like you can't feel the mask. It becomes invisible. And so you don't ever feel it. You just go to you feel it for for first few minutes, but if you wake up in the middle of the night, you don't even notice it's on your face. Because it's raised around the eyes so that your eyelashes don't hit it. Um and I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but I can't remember how much it is, but it's like less than $15. And before we had blackout blinds in the room, I used it and it was incredible. I would get noticeably deeper and longer, more restful sleep just from an eye mask. So I absolutely agree with you. Um,
That's
for
great.
those who have young kids, though, I'm not sure about the earplugs. I'd be afraid of not hearing my son, but I guess you can hear if there's like screaming or crying. You could, can you hear it through the earplugs?
Yes, it's up to 32 decibels total, so you can not hear the rumbling of a truck going by, but you can hear the voice of someone next to you or someone in the other room, especially if a child is having a nightmare. So it's for the ambient noise, the person washing the dishes, the clattering of a truck going by, and there's a pothole in the street outside your home.
The snoring of a partner beside you.
Yes, it softens. It softens.
Very
An-
cool.
Another silence as a healer that's been empowering for me is bathing in silence. Light your candles, have your essential oils, bathing in silence with scent. And my bathroom doesn't have any windows, so it creates an extra layer of quietness. Rather than having the music on, which is great, you being silent and the room being silent is so powerful. And all you hear is water, which is kind of like a womb. But
Mm.
if you're silent, right, there's a difference between the ambience being silent and you being silent. If you can have both, that is a highly enlightening and meditative state. But if you're bathing, sometimes you will hear the water. I think that the layer of scent allows your imagination to wander to scents that are similar in your memory. For example, right now, I have a pumpkin spice vanilla amber candle in the room, and I'm instantly taken back to when I was a child during winter break, making pastries and pumpkin pies and rugelach with my mother and the fun that we had. Through my silence, if I were in the bath, I could take a journey back there, and it's joyful. And that silence of that happy memory is healing.
Mm. I love it. Yeah, if I put like rose geranium or bergamot in the bath, I'm taken right back to this time when I was an early teenager. I was just getting into essential oils, and those and that and clary sage, those were like my first 3 favorite essential oils, and I put them in everything. I put them in my shampoo, I put them in my conditioner, I put them in my bath. And so anytime I smell them now, I'm taken back to this really innocent and joyous time when I'm, maybe about 15 years old, just really geeking out on, for the first time ever, learning about essential oils, and kind of just opening my eyes to more ways of healing. That was the year I read the Celestine Prophecy. And I got into the book The Alchemist, and started exploring energy healing and herbs on my own, like independent of my parents. So that time in my life is totally, all those memories are encapsulated the second I smell clary sage or bergamot or rose geranium, especially them combined. I'm taken right back to those memories. So absolutely, I could sit in a bath and I could reminisce on very happy times, um, and be brought back to memories that would be healing to relive. So we
And
might,
it's healing. Yes, it's
yeah.
healing to what's going on now in your life that's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the answers are there in the memories, the
Mm.
advice, the wisdoms. You talked about reading, and I think that reading is a silent healer. You're sitting quietly, you're in another world, you're learning, or if it's fiction, you're in someone else's world. And all of their challenges are able to help you with how the characters overcome challenges. But you're
Mm-hmm.
being silent, you're absorbing. And reading is such a silent healer.
I feel like all of our introverted listeners are feeling like vindicated right now, because in America, there's, just as a percentage, there are more extroverts than introverts. And so introverts tend to be put down and misunderstood, where introverts need silence, or need to be either by themselves or with a few people that they really love and connect with in order to recharge their batteries. Those who are extroverts, that would drain them. Being alone often isn't doesn't recharge them, and they love big crowds, and they often avoid silence. But everyone needs de-stress, right? So everyone needs time to de-stress. And so extroverts, this may be uncomfortable for them at first, but I think once an extrovert does take that 2 minutes to slow down and does it often enough, they begin to, like you said, they find answers to the problems that they've been dealing with. I think I said this in a earlier episode. In the last few days, I did an interview where we talked about meditation, and it's funny. This I sit down, and within 2 minutes, I try to meditate. Within 2 minutes of sitting down to meditate, my brain has already solved a problem I've been like trying to work on for a week. And so then I get up and jump up and go to do it, right? And go to implement whatever action my brain thought. So I just sit down. If I'm just quiet for 2 minutes, my brain solves these problems that I couldn't solve for sometimes days or weeks. And it's just so funny that this is such an easy tool, and yet we don't utilize it enough.
Yes. And reading, meditating, writing. Let's talk about the companion to reading, which is a silent healer. writing. Even if you're not a professional writer or an author, we've been forced to write as part of our learning journey, right? From preschool, kindergarten, all the way up. We're forced to learn how to write. We're forced to learn the proper parts of language, journaling, diary making, creative writing. When you give somebody 3 words and you say, okay, with these 3 words, make a silly story, write it down. Those writing prompts that you got as a child, writing is so powerful because it's coming from knowledge and it's also coming from pure divine inspiration from whatever is around you or in nature or a God source, whatever you want to call it, all that is from a love source. And it doesn't have to be for anybody else but you. Share if you want, but don't share if you don't want. But the silent action of sitting down and writing something, anything, even free association, just words, is healing to yourself physically, biochemically.
I love it. I love it. Just sitting down and letting it flow, or finding those prompts. Um a lot of people think they can't write and they just need to sit down and just start journaling. Um what is it called? The morning papers, the morning, it was the artist's way. Do you remember
Mhm.
that? It's a very famous practice where you journal every morning before you even like let your feet hit the floor. and
Yes.
and I heard from several people who did it as a practice, and they said it completely changed their life. Just sitting down and journaling and letting it flow. Don't judge it. No one else is going to read it. It's just you letting your consciousness flow. And again, it's that outlet that allows you to easily solve problems that might have been eating you up inside. But once you get it out of your mind and you communicate it, even if it's just to yourself on paper, it has a great way of working itself out. Your brain, when you get it outside of your head, your brain can really manage it in chunks. So just sitting down, letting the pen flow and seeing what happens can be very healing.
If you're afraid that somebody will find your work, that writing is healing, you have the opportunity. If you're, so, say, you're in a domestic abuse situation and you're not quite ready to leave yet, so you tear that paper out or those pages out and you burn it in the negative thought pot silently. You can do both. You can write, and then if there is an added level of stress, you can also destroy it because the act of doing it is the healing itself. The fact that you've already written it.
Hmm. It's funny you say that. When I was late teens, early 20s, I was in a relationship. At the time, I didn't know it was abusive because it wasn't physically abusive, right? And I couldn't recognize how mentally and emotionally abusive he was until I left and went, "Holy crow, that is not how a person should treat another person. That was a horrible situation." But in the time, I didn't realize that it was, right? And I ended up journaling about it. My dad found the journal and he was so concerned. And I felt so violated. Like, how dare you read my journal? But my dad like started saying things like, "Are you sure you want to be with him? Are you okay? I'm worried about you." And he started pointing out that maybe it wasn't a healthy relationship. So in the long run, it was good that he found it and kind of let me know, or began the dialogue. But at the time, I was mortified to have someone find it. But maybe unconsciously, I left it out so that it could be found. I don't know. Um, but it was a very therapeutic thing to do, to have journaled about it, um, to begin to start to see what was going on, because on an unconscious level, my emotional state was that it wasn't healthy, but I couldn't see that logically at the time. Um, and so it was all a wonderful learning process. But yeah, journaling was part of my healing to get out of it.
Did
So
it biochemically affect you being in that
oh,
relationship?
absolutely. Absolutely. It was so messed up. It took me several years to heal from it, and I don't see myself as a victim at all. I'm so thankful I had that experience because I am so stronger now, and I thank him for the role he played in my life. But it was like, if I mean, I don't know, you know how you say like I love where I am, I wouldn't change my past, but if I really had to go back and do it over again, I probably would have avoided him. But then again, I wouldn't have had all the wonderful I definitely would have avoided him. But I wouldn't have the wonderful learnings I have now. So I'm kind of like, well, you have to go through the fire sometimes. So I'm glad I have these learnings. I love who I am today. And but it was I have a lot of empathy and compassion for people in an emotionally or mentally abusive relationship because it's so hard to see it at the time.
Yes.
It's so hard to see. And so it's like we have to have certain standards and we have to have boundaries and we have to be willing. Boundaries mean we have to be willing to walk away if the boundary keeps getting violated. And that's it. I mean, the problem is I kept making excuses for him and kept making excuses and kept just like letting my boundaries be steamrolled over and over and over again until I didn't know who I was anymore. And yeah, journaling helped me to begin to see that. So I definitely agree with that, especially if there's even ever a question that someone might be in an abusive situation, an abusive relationship.
Write those questions down. I just had a vision right now of your relationship, and I liken it to a quarter. A kid wants a quarter, and you're offering this kid a quarter, but you get the front of the quarter and you get the back of the quarter. So you just get the quarter. So you're gonna get the good parts of the relationship and the parts of the relationship you don't want. Even if you just like the front of the quarter, you still get the whole quarter.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out what you want to do with it. And sometimes you just have to put the quarter in a machine and get a gumball instead. Get rid of the damn quarter.
Move on. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. No, I'm very thankful for the lessons, but I would love to be able to, if my voice or my experience could somehow help other people realize they're in an abusive situation. I mean, there's some situations where you can turn it around by enforcing boundaries and learning healthy communication. And if your boundaries keep getting violated, it's you need to make the tough call. But it is better to be alone and healthy than not be alone and be mentally and emotionally unhealthy in the long
Yes.
run. So
Yes.
yeah. So yes, journaling, great. Moving on. What is the next wonderful uh free healing that you recommend for us?
I recommend meditation. And I've tried to meditate since I was 15, and only in the past 5 years have I been able to successfully, what I consider successful meditation. It is silent and it is a healer. So I take yoga, and after yoga, I just lay there on the mat. And one day, I had this flashback of a kindergarten or a first grade classroom, and I saw the wide band going across the upper walls where it teaches you how to write your ABCs and your one, two, threes. And it's large and there's a dotted line in the middle. And I silently said to myself, one, one, one. And then I went to two. And I did this slowly as if I were writing those letters on the large border in the elementary school room. And I just saw those letters, the numbers, I mean. And I was going 1 through 10 slowly in my mind and back to 1. And I did that twice. And just the fact that those digits were all I were focusing on, it was like a vacation from the rest of my life, my stress, my worries. And a thought would come in, right? I wouldn't deny it. But as soon as that thought would cut in, like, what am I going to buy for groceries? What am I going to make for kids for the lunch tomorrow? I would mentally say to myself, oh, wait a minute. What number am I on again? Oh, yes, four, four. And I would see it stretching out like taffy. And when I was finished, I had meditated for 2 minutes. It blew me away. It was so refreshing and it was completely silent.
That's awesome. Have you gotten to the point where you can meditate without counting numbers to yourself? Or is this a great sort of beginner step with training wheels on?
This is a beginner step, and I have signed up for June to go to a 10-day, 100% silent meditation retreat. And
Wow.
that's going to be putting my big girl pants on.
I want to interview you after that.
It's called Vipassana, Vipassana,
Mhm.
and they have 3 resorts in California, and there are Buddhist monks that teach it, and it's completely free, but you have to fill out a deep application in order to be accepted.
Well, yeah, you definitely want to make sure that someone is emotionally stable for that, because that must be intense, I imagine.
Yeah, it's like 10 hours of meditating a day, and then there's eating time and sleeping time, and you may walk the grounds. You're not permitted to exercise, you're not permitted to write, there are no electronics. They say if you're going to take any medicines, to try and scale it down if you have prescription medications. It's so exciting for me to be I've never shut up for 10 days, and I really need it.
Oh yeah, I don't think I've shut up for 10 minutes. So wow, I know my godmother has done this before. And my first question to her was, "Well, what about touch?" Like my fear was touch deprivation. Are you allowed to hug each other? Like I know you're not allowed to talk, but could you like signal like, "May I hug you?" Or can you like make an arrangement with your roommate to hug? I mean, because to me touch deprivation is dangerous. You know, we need that contact. I don't know if 10 days is just a short time. I guess maybe we can go 10 days without physical contact, but that was the first thing that concerned me.
What was her answer?
I asked her going into it. That was the last time I talked to her on the phone. She was going into the meditation, into the 10-day retreat, which was recently. And she said she didn't know, but then she texted me afterwards and she said it was the most amazing experience. We've been texting since. We haven't gotten on the phone yet because every time we get on the phone we talk for like 2 hours. Um but yeah, we've been texting each other back and forth. She said it was absolutely the most amazing experience. She had the time of her life. It was incredible. She ended up spending a few days before, I think it was before or after, with her roommate, like going into it or coming out of it so they could talk. They did talk, but not during the retreat. And just fantastic. So yeah, she didn't die from no touch or or being silent for 10 days. uh and she had an incredibly healing experience, so I'm excited for you. I
Yeah.
look forward to hearing about it. um yeah, the guy that wrote the 4-hour work week,
Mhm.
he does this. Like I think he does it like once or twice, once a year, once every 2 years. He does these he talks about doing these silent retreats and he does not like them. He doesn't he challenges himself,
Right.
but he doesn't like the discomfort of not being able to talk. So I think we must get past that. There must be some kind of like, once you get past that, um do you expect to process a lot during it, or is it like a break from is it a
I
break from thought, or is it to really process thought, or is it both?
It's to learn how to meditate, and instead of focusing on numbers, the intent is to focus on the breath and actually feel everything you're feeling, so it is process-based. Feel
Mm.
your body, feel the ache of sitting 10 hours, feel your spine, feel your breath, listen to the breathing of other people. Some woman, I was told, she went there with intense back problems, and after 10 days of sitting, she was completely healed
Wow.
just
Yeah.
by meditating on it.
I can believe that because there's a book by Dr. John E. Sarno many years ago, who wrote a book called Healing Back Pain. I wanted to get him on the show, but he's like in his 90s and he's not giving interviews anymore, unfortunately. Even though there was nothing he saw on his MRIs or whatever physically wrong anymore, that they should not have back pain, but they still had back pain. And he started to notice that people who didn't have back pain could have bulging discs, And so bulging disc wasn't really necessarily related to back pain. So he started to go, well, what is causing back pain? If it's not something I can cut out of someone in a surgery, what is causing back pain? He went on this long journey and he discovered that oftentimes the body, when we don't deal with an emotion and we're too busy running through life, the brain will cause a muscle to go ischemic, which means it causes the muscle to spasm to the point where blood flow's cut off. And when you have blood flow cut off to a muscle, it's incredibly painful. And so what he figured out was that people, when they have an unconscious, unresolved emotional issue, or if they're not paying attention to themselves, like let's say they're in an emotionally abusive relationship and they're ignoring it, and they ignore it and they ignore it and they ignore it, the body will eventually go, I can't handle this anymore. I'm going to create pain so that you start listening. And within minutes of them listening and finally get paying attention, like being silent and listening or journaling, doing any of these things that you mentioned, they got in touch with the root cause, and the body then let it go, and
Wow.
the pain could go away. Yeah, so you could turn pain on and off essentially by um through, either ignoring and pushing and stuffing down what the body wants to resolve, or resolving it. Yeah, so that's Healing Back Pain by John E. Sarno. And his what he learned was then adapted in a lot of coaching techniques, like emotional work that you can do with clients, and um asking them questions about where's their pain, for example. Your pain's on a scale of 1 to 10, and then going, what emotion's present. And at first they'll be like, what do you mean there's no emotion present? uh but if they if they take a few minutes and you just have your pad of paper and you go, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's your pain? Let's say it's a 7. I've done this many times, it's really cool. And you go, okay, what emotion's present? And then they go, maybe sadness. And you go, okay, great. What is it? And you can ask them, like, where is it? What does it look like? What shape is it? What color is it? Like in terms of the pain, right? And you keep getting them to become aware of the pain, instead of, because people will push their pain away, like in their mind, like, I need to numb this, I need to push it away. But if you actually have them dive into the pain and have them completely become aware, like, how many cups of water could this pain hold, if it could hold water? And you get them to become so conscious of it, and then you keep asking them, what emotions present, and the emotions will kind of cycle through. And then under that will be anger, and under that will be, regret or frustration or guilt, and it keeps going. And then you'll ask, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain at? And if they allow themselves to become conscious of, and I mean, you can do this yourself, you can journal it, or you can meditate on it, or you can, pray on it, but be silent about it. But instead of pushing the pain away, be aware of it. And the awareness is what the body wants, the awareness. And then, um, in that silence, the body then lets you see what you've been pushing down, what you've been avoiding, and so you can resolve it. And when you do, the muscles let go and the pain goes away. It's so cool. And there's nothing physically wrong. And so many people go for surgeries and are on pain meds for years, when this is a mechanism that the brain has to help us to resolve stuff that is not physical stress. It's emotional, and it's mental stress, and it's spiritual stress, but it's going to manifest physically, because that's how the body communicates with us if we don't listen. So
Yes.
that was derived from Dr. Johnny Sarno's work. And when you said that about the woman who meditated for 10 days and her back pain went away, I was like, yes, this is exactly it. This is so cool, how exactly what you're teaching, silence as a healer, it's more like silence so that we could become aware. So because awareness is one of the things that we get from being silent, and that awareness is one of the healers within the silence. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think that in itself is a gift, because you can finally say, "Oh, I am wholly me, WHOLLY, and I am also wholly me," which you realize what a unique, special gift you are to the world and to the universe and to your friends and family. And you can say, "Heck, I'm not going back." So your self esteem is there, your empowerment is there, your honoring of the fact that you want to be pain free. And so, therefore, I allow myself to be pain free because I figured out what the heck was behind all of that through silence.
Very cool. Awesome.
Let's talk about healthy spine, healthy life. Practice yoga, and I started practicing yoga when I was 15 at the library with a free Saturday morning class. And I was the only person under 70 there. The teacher was in her late 70s and she was from Eastern Europe somewhere. And I just remember the velvet tone of her voice where she would go, relax your thighs, relax your thighs at the end of class. And she would pick up our ankles while we were laying on our stomach. And she would lift us up until we were almost U shaped. And she would do this to every person in class as a gift. And I couldn't wait till she would come to me. And I learned at that time that if all these 70 and 80 and 90-year-olds in Squirrel Hill, Pittsburgh were doing this yoga, there must be something to it. So off and on through the years, I have always gone back to yoga. And for the past 5 years, I've been consistent with hot yoga. And they always talk about healthy spine, healthy life. But for me, Bikram hot yoga is so important because you can't talk in class. You must be silent. The teacher talks, and the poses are so intense, and you hold them for 60 seconds and then 30 seconds. So you're building muscle memory. And the fact that I can't talk while I'm doing an intense physical workout, that is another level of silence and leaving my body. That's a sort of moving meditation. So I think that if you're able to engage in any yoga, even if you have a TV, there's free yoga classes on cable television on the healthy yoga channels.
And YouTube. There's yoga, free yoga on YouTube. My favorite is Kripalu yoga, which is really gentle, maybe something like more for beginners to get into before they up their game to Bikram or Hatha yoga. Um, but I love Kripalu. It's more meditation in motion. It's incredibly gentle, and it's fun that there's so many different styles. So if someone's been turned off by yoga because they had one yoga class or two yoga classes, they really didn't like it, my recommendation is go check out different forms of yoga, just like different forms of martial art. They're really different. Kripalu is really different than Hatha. And Bikram is totally different than the other styles. They're all essentially stretching, but the challenges and the environment and what you walk away with. Some styles of yoga you walk away energized, like Hatha is more of an exercise. You walk away like sore and sweating. Whereas Kripalu, it's never aerobic. It's you could do Kripalu yoga and then probably fall asleep halfway through
Mm.
the class because of how gentle and slow it is, and never sore after a Kripalu session. So there's just different styles, and I encourage people because yoga is so powerful, keep trying different styles until they find the one that they resonate with right now. I love that you resonate with the Bikram hot yoga, because there's so many great things you get out of it. It's a detox. The sweating is a detox, and like you said, you have to be silent and you're moving your body in a way that is so restorative. You're right. The senior citizens that do yoga are incredibly healthy, and part of health, like you said at the beginning of the show, is that when we are near our deathbed, that we're still able to jump out of bed and have our flexibility, have our body intact, and be able to not need assistance. That would be ideal for all of us, and that's something that we can achieve by starting yoga now. It doesn't matter how young or old we are.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Once you get three stretching motions and you understand them from the yoga point of view, then you're able to do that anywhere in silence, in nature, at home, in your living room, in the bath. But stretching silently, once you have figured out which sort of yoga meets your needs at the moment, is so empowering. And that is another form of silence as a healer, and it's completely free. My husband, when he was a kid, his parents are short. His father, 5'7", his mother, 5'3". His brother, 5'6". My husband is 6'3". And I asked him, how did this happen in your family? We did the DNA test. Nobody in your family comes from tall tribes. And he told me when he was a child, he wanted to be a basketball player so much that he stretched every day. He didn't know it was yoga at the time, but he did these stretches and he prayed to God. So through power of stretching and silence and intention and meditation and focus, he's 6'3". And he said he owes it all to stretching quietly
That's
by himself.
That is so cool. I love that. Well, that makes sense. You stretch the body and the intention and the prayer. But when stretching the body, you're allowing the space for the bones to keep growing, right? So you're giving the body space. That makes a lot of sense. You'd also mentioned earlier that you teach chair yoga. I have a friend who has really bad and arthritis and in her knees, and she discovered she has this old VHS tape of chair yoga that she pops in every morning before she even lets her feet touch the ground, and she does her chair yoga but on the edge of her bed. She does her little yoga routine on the edge of the bed, and 5-10 minutes of it, and then she gets up and she's pain free. Whereas if she doesn't do that, which warms up her joints, she's in a lot of pain in the beginning of her day. So people who are in pain, chair yoga is fantastic. I thought that was so cool to hear that from my friend.
Wow. Yes, it works. It works. Let's talk about prayer. Since I mentioned my husband praying, the difference between prayer and meditation is that in prayer, a lot of times we're either honoring an outside source, we're worshiping, or we're making a request. We're either grateful, breaking into tears when you see an amazing flower in nature. That could be a place of prayer, or you're in a formal house of worship, a place of worship. The quiet intention and the silence, even though I'm Jewish, when I walk into a church with all those candles and just sitting quietly in the pew, because a lot of churches are made with walls that take us away from the outside world in a silent space. When you're requesting something, when you're grateful for something, or when you're worshiping something, it is such an amazing healer as a form of silence as a healer. That modality I have found over the years is just as powerful and equal to meditation, which is seeking out the nothingness, the space in between the words and the intentions.
Wonderful. That's really beautiful.
Let's talk about nature. Hiking and walking in nature in Japan is called Shinrin Yoku. And Shinrin Yoku is the number one prescription that doctors write on pads. If a person is suffering from anxiety, stress, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, depression, bipolar disorder, the number one prescription written in Japan is Shinrin Yoku, which means forest bathing. And they have to spend time outdoors in nature. Communing with nature when we are silent allows the orchestra of the natural sounds to come through loud and clear, and it engages our five senses. And if we're lucky, eventually our sixth sense with repetition. And it's completely free. Just shut up and go outside. Go outside and play. It's so helpful for every part of our biology, our physiology, and our emotional wellness.
I love it. And it's so true. Like really go hug a tree. Like really touch cuz there's very grounding. If we can't take our shoes off and do earthing where we're grounding ourselves within the earth, if you can't do that cuz there's snow or whatever, touch a tree, take your gloves off, hug the tree, touch the tree. Electrons leave your body and enter the earth. We are literally grounding ourselves. And you can be in touch with more than negative ions. Negative ions aren't negative; they're actually a positive thing for your body. Positive ions, too much positive ions have been linked to depression and suicide, and it's seen in the Santa Ana winds in California, when they blow the hot air into those residential areas, the suicide rates go up through the roof,
Mm.
because the Santa Ana winds carry positive ions. Negative ions create euphoria and happiness, and they you can find them if you bathe in water that was still. So, for example, if you bathe um, a waterfall, the water was still, before it fell, before it fell right onto you. And so there's these areas in nature where negative ions are in abundance, and areas where you can kind of release the positive ions, and that's things like grounding. So getting your feet in the sand or in the ocean or in the grass, or hugging a tree, touching nature. That's why so many people love gardening and they find it so relaxing, because they are um, generating they're absorbing these negative ions, releasing the positive ions, and they're getting the wonderful natural sunlight, the oxygen. They're away from electronics. There's so many, and I'm sure there's even things we don't even know about why nature is healing, but it is, and it's free. I love that. Like you said, shut up and go for a walk.
It's true. And everything that you said, right? If all physical things, including humans, if all living things are basically broken down into energy, which is protons, neutrons, and electrons, we're not talking woo woo, hippie, trippy stuff. We're talking science. It's scientifically been proven that hiking or walking in nature heals anxiety, stress, bipolar disorder, depression. It also heals cholesterol, high blood pressure, heart disease, but you have to do it with some sort of regularity, even if it's only for a few minutes a day. People that work inside at a desk all day in an environment which is not natural, go out to the courtyard, go out to the back of the building, go out to the parking lot where the trees are, breathe, be quiet. It's so powerful and it's so healing and it's scientifically healing. And you realize if you do get the chance to hike or walk in nature for an extended period of time, even 20 minutes, you realize that it's not, oh, it's me out in nature. Humans are nature, and we seem to forget that. We see ourselves as separate from the woods, see ourselves separate from the animals, separate from the trees, from the flowers, from the wind, from the bark. We are part of that orchestra. We are part of that symphony. And that's really empowering once you figure that out in nature.
Beautiful.
The last one is something that takes money. And the last one I would like to share with you my experience in a sensory deprivation tank. And I went on Living Social or Amazon Local or Groupon and I purchased a 1 hour session in a sensory deprivation tank. And I didn't know what it was, but I did hear Evan Brand do a podcast on it and how he really enjoys it. And he says you either feel like you're in outer space or you feel like you're in the womb where you're devoid of those five senses and you just allow yourself to be with the sixth sense, which is instinct. So I look forward to it and I got a sale and I went in there and it's a black room. And the black room on the outside looks like a sauna, and then it's basically thousands of pounds of Epsom salts in a foot and a half of water made body temperature. So you cannot drown. And you go in there and it's basically black style of garbage bags surrounding the walls of this small room. And you lay down on your back and you just float for an hour. And it's supposed to guide you in silence as a healer. Now, my personal experience, I was too cold because I like things warmer. So I was wishing that it was warmer. So if I do it again, it'll be warmer. And at about the 45-minute mark, I didn't feel this sense of enlightenment like I wanted to. I thought I was going to hit nirvana. And that didn't happen for me. But for many people, the sensory deprivation tank, doing it once a month them does cost money. It's not one of the free events that are part of my Silence as a Healer. It's very, very good for them, and it helps them release so many of the anxieties in our busy, busy, busy modern lives. So I'd like to add that as an option, but that one does cost money.
So I have
Maybe it'd be a good holiday present.
yes, I have two really close friends of mine that have done the deprivation tanks recently. One of them is an expert meditator. He's been meditating for over half his life. He's like a black belt in meditation. I'm really butchering what it's called, but he's basically been ordained as like a guru meditator. And he had the same experience. The first few times wasn't as enlightening as he thought it would be, but he said after three times, after three sessions, um, it 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 like you get used to it and you go deeper and deeper. And what he does now, he meditates before, during, and after his session. And he said he wished his sessions were longer, but at first, like after about an hour, you want to get out. And it takes a few sessions for you to want to be in there for longer than an hour. My other friend said that it's at the 2 hour mark. Like you want to get work your way up to 2 hours in the deprivation tank, because that it's like the second hour is the magic, where all the magic happens. But you have to do a few sessions to work your way up to wanting to be in there for 2 hours.
Right,
And yeah, I love that you address the concerns people have, like I did. What if you what if you fall asleep and roll over? What if you drowned? And you can't. It's more salty than the Dead Sea, and so you're basically floating on top of the water. And I like the advice you give about, if you're someone who likes it warm like me, you'd want to tell them to make it a bit warmer, because some people run hot, and so they should adjust for that.
yes. You know, being silent in everyday life, you can create these small rituals. Painting your nails can be silence as a healer. Even washing the dishes can be silence as a healer. My husband finds great moments of silence and healing and meditation when he washes the dishes, so I always leave them for him.
As long as we turn the radio off or turn the TV off, turn the cell phone off, because a lot of times people will have the TV running in the background. I have a friend, when we ever we go to their house, no matter what time of day it is, if it's right about bedtime or if it's dinner time, the TV is on
Mm.
all the time. There's never silence in this house, and it drives me crazy. And a few times I've like snuck over to the remote and turned the TV off so we could have like a nice dinner without the TV blaring. And halfway through dinner, he goes, "Who turned the TV off?" And he goes and turns it back on. Like, no one's watching it. We're in the dining room. We're in like the kitchen eating. We're nowhere near the TV. No one can see the TV, but it has like that noise like has to be on. And I know some people are so afraid of the silence, because what would happen if they started hearing their thoughts or started getting in touch with their emotions. And we have to get past that fear, so we have to just set aside the time to begin this process, and not be afraid of it, because nothing scary is going to happen. I know I was very afraid when I started learning hypnosis. I was afraid that I'd get in touch with some part of me, or hear something or feel something I didn't want to, and ultimately all I felt was bliss. When you start to really get in touch with who you are inside and you start to hear the thoughts and feel the emotions, it's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing. And when you said he had fear that kept him from turning the television off, before you said it, that was the first thing I thought. Oh, he's afraid of something.
Mm.
Oh, but once you realize that everything that's out there is a part of nature, is part of the big symphony, and your big why do you want to be silent in the first place? Because it's a little piece. It really is peace. And it can help you in every other area of your life, which is extremely busy, especially during this holiday season. It's a time where we can just stop the insanity for just a couple of minutes. And once it becomes regular, you'll feel better, and you'll have the data to back it up when you go to your doctor and get those
Mm.
tests.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Do you have any stories to share of success that your clients have had, or your students have had, in implementing these changes in their life?
There's a woman that I helped with somatic therapy, which is related to the healing therapy with the back. And we met, I was her personal trainer, race walking around Lake Merced in San Francisco. And she was afraid to ask her boss for a raise. They changed her title over the years, but they never gave her a raise. And she was fearful of that. And it manifested itself in her body with back aches and hip aches and knee pain and insomnia. So I asked her, let's call her Edna, to place her hands. We're at the lake, and I said, lay on the picnic table and place your hands where you're feeling the most pain and anxiety. And let's start with the pain, and let's not start with the anxiety or the emotions behind it or the story behind it. And as we just focused on healing the stress there before we went on our race walk, little by little, with regularity, she was able to talk herself, why is the pain there? And how did it get there? And if there wasn't a physical incident like a fall or a crash, do you think you can shift the pain to another area? And she did, little by little, and it moved up to her throat. And then she had a sore throat all the time. Well, why do you have a sore throat pain? Let's talk about that. Let's put your hands there, one on your heart and one on your throat. And this is called somatic therapy, honoring what's happening physically in the body. And I write about that in my book. So eventually she realizes, because she was afraid to speak. And that relates to the energy center of the throat chakra,
Mm-hmm.
speaking your truth. And with the physicality of being in nature, walking around the lake silently, and starting out with the somatic therapy and talking through it, she was able to talk to herself. And eventually she was able to ask her company for the raise, get the raise that she wanted, and all of her symptoms faded.
So cool.
And that's in my book as well. And my book, just so you know, Happy Healthy You, is in ebook form for only $4.99, and the paperback form is on sale 33 or 32% off for $11 and change on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, BooksAMillion.com, anywhere else where you purchase your books. And it's also available in the libraries and a lot of stores, and they'll order it for you through the regular channels. It makes a great holiday gift. How can you give someone the gift of health and life and love and practical modalities for healing with $4.99 in an ebook version?
That's
So I
very,
just think
very
it's
cool.
helpful. So just wanted to do a
Absolutely.
shout out.
Yes, no, you should, because we need holiday ideas. We need, holiday gift ideas for especially affordable ones if we want to give to our coworkers, our neighbors, maybe other people that go to our church or other community events. We might buy the big ticket items for the close friends and family, but then all of a sudden we start thinking about, oh man, I have to give a gift for this person, or I should get a gift for my boss's wife, or we start thinking about these people, and we want to give them something meaningful, but also we'd like it to be affordable, and something that's powerful like a book, especially if we know that it can provide such healing, um, would be a wonderful book to all family members also. But I've kind of done my I got all of my Christmas shopping done. My goal was to get it done before December, and I just have a few little things I need to get for, like, friends. And this is exactly what I'm looking for. Like, what's a really impactful, meaningful gift? So something like your book would be perfect. Now, of course, we're going to have the link to buy your book in the show notes of the podcast and your website as well. Superior Self with kjlandis.com. Your website's going to be in the show notes as well. Is there
Great.
anything you would like to share with the listeners to wrap up today's wonderful interview? And thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your tips. They're great. They're affordable. They're something we can do on a regular basis, a daily basis, if not weekly, and we can definitely see results from it. Especially people who are in pain or who have been having stress and they want to learn how to resolve it. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners or challenge the listeners to do?
I would love to share with the listeners that I don't want to have these tools and tips be another thing to add to your to do list and create more anxiety. So I suggest to the listeners, when creating a space of sacred silence or a ritual of silence, look at it as a present to yourself, because you deserve to be the best you that you can be for all of your life. And if you're a little fearful of the truth that may come out and the past that may come up and the feelings and the emotions, take someone with you on that silent journey and double that power and hold their hand in silence.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this information. And definitely, we've got to have you back on the show after you do your 10-day meditation because I've got about a million questions for you. I want to know all about it. Uh,
Thank you. I look forward to that. Well, that'll be in the end of June. So let's talk July or August.
that sounds great. Well, then have a fantastic holiday season and a wonderful spring, and we'll see you in the summer.
God bless you and your listeners. I hope you stay alive and lively.
Hello, true health seeker. Have you ever thought about becoming a health coach? Do you love learning about nutrition and how we can shift our lifestyle and our diet so that we can gain optimal health and happiness and longevity? Do you love helping your friends and family to solve their health problems and to figure out what they can do to eat healthier? Are you interested in becoming someone who can grow their own business, support people in their success? Do you love helping people? You might be the perfect candidate to become a health coach. I highly recommend checking out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I just spent the last year in their health coaching certification program, and it really blew me away. It was so amazing. I learned over 100 dietary theories. I learned all about nutrition, but from a standpoint of how we can help people to shift their life and shift their lifestyle to gain true holistic health. I definitely recommend you check them out. You can Google Institute for Integrative Nutrition or IIN and give them a call, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/coach and you can receive a free module of their training to check it out and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. Be sure to mention my name, Ashley James, and the Learn True Health podcast because I made a deal with them that they will give you the best price possible. I highly recommend checking it out. It really changed my life to be in their program, and I'm such a big advocate that I wanted to spread this information. We need more health coaches. In fact, health coaching is the largest growing career right now in the health field. So many health coaches are getting in and helping people because you can work in chiropractic offices, doctors' offices, you can work in hospitals, you can work online through Skype and help people around the world. You can become an author, you can go into the school system and help your local schools shift their programs to help children be healthier. You can go into senior centers and help them to shift their diet and lifestyle to best support them in their success and their health goals. There's so many different available options for you when you become a certified health coach. So check out IIN, check out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Mention my name, get the best deal. Give them a call and they'll give you lots of free information and help you to see if this is the right move for you. Classes are starting soon. The next round of classes are starting at the end of the month. So you're going to want to call them now and check it out. And if you know anyone in your life who would be an amazing coach, please tell them about it. Being a health coach is so rewarding and you get to help so many people.